He referred to himself as the child who was forgotten. The church is to blame for years of shame, rejection, and secrecy, according to a young man who recently came forward to claim that he is the hidden son of gospel superstar Donnie McClurkin. Even more startling is his claim that religious leaders who were unable to accept the facts coerced McClurkin into remaining silent. What did the church actually conceal? What caused this young guy to be removed from the gospel story? You'll be shocked by the answers. Donnie McClurkin is a Grammy-winning gospel hero, pastor, survivor, and a voice that healed shattered souls. When you think of him, you think of worship and redemption. His narrative has consistently been one of triumph. However, a young guy who claims to be his secret son has suddenly surfaced. Furthermore, the narrative he presents has the potential to completely alter our preconceived notions. This is more than a private scandal. It's an expose that goes right to the core of the gospel music business and the strict, frequently upsetting standards that black men in ministry must meet. This young man claims that he was hidden due to church pressure rather than embarrassment from his father. According to him, church authorities suppressed Donnie by threatening to condemn him if he ever publicly acknowledged his son. And you'll see why the biggest names in gospel music have been oddly silent after hearing what this young man claims transpired behind closed doors. We're dissecting everything in this video: the church's strict stance on sexuality, the suspected hidden child, the gospel world's image management mentality, and the reasons why Donnie may not have chosen to remain silent. And you'll want to stay put because the last twist could permanently alter your perspective on gospel leadership. The voice existed before the accusations, before the news stories, before the suffering. A voice that took stadiums to tears and congregations to revival. A voice honed through years of spiritual combat, molded in worship, and created out of trauma. There was more to Donnie McClurkin than simply another gospel performer. He was a living example of testimony. Donnie was raised in Amityville, New York, and experienced tragedy at a young age. His family was rocked to its foundations when he lost his younger brother in a vehicle accident when he was only 8 years old. Soon after, he suffered from sexual abuse at the hands of family members, which resulted in years of mental suffering, silence, and identity confusion. Donnie's entire career would be characterized in many respects by a recurring conflict between reputation and atonement. He rose quickly in the gospel industry. Donnie's music became a lifeline for people struggling with brokenness, starting with small church choirs and continuing through collaborations with icons like Andre Crew and his 1996 song, Stand, which made him a household name. However, success also brought scrutiny. Public interest in him expanded along with his platform. In addition to his music, Donnie gained notoriety for his candid and nuanced conversation regarding his previous sexuality issues. He never came out as gay, but his remarks frequently walked a tightrope, discussing his struggles with same-sex attraction and how his faith helped him overcome it. In the black church, where conversations about sexuality were still contentious, particularly among male clergy, that very subject turned into a divisive issue. Donnie gained some admirers, but also became a target because of his genuineness. Even with his numerous Grammys, BET Awards, Dove Awards, and other honors, Donnie was frequently scrutinized. His appearances on television shows, his relationships, and his choice to stay single all served as fodder for rumors. He never broke though, at least not in public. However, what if he had been concealing something or someone all along? And what if that silence was the product of deliberate pressure from church leadership looking to preserve their reputation, rather than just being personal? Because the young man who came forward is now asserting precisely that. It's time to investigate his side of the tale. A little video on a little-known TikTok account was the starting point. Only a face, unadulterated feeling, and a voice trembling with anxiety. The young man in the video, who we'll call Jordan to keep his identity private, stares straight into the camera and utters 6 words that rock the gospel community. "My father's name is Donnie McClurkin." It didn't attract much attention at first. After all, there are a lot of ridiculous claims on TikTok. Jordan wasn't speaking for influence though. His video was unimpressive. He had nothing to promote. He wasn't requesting notoriety. He was just speaking the truth. It was also devastating. Jordan told his story in several follow-up videos. He claimed that his mother had informed him from an early age that his father was a well-known gospel leader. She didn't tell him the name Donnie McClurkin until he was a teenager. Jordan asserted that he had seen posters featuring his face, heard his songs at church, and watched his father on TV for years, knowing deep down that he was his father. This is where things become complex, though. Jordan claimed that when Donnie was alternating between significant career turning points, his mother had once been involved with him. She never asked for money or sued for paternity, even after his major breakthrough, but before he became a worldwide gospel ambassador. Jordan claims that even though it was detrimental to them both, she defended Donnie's reputation. Jordan finally made an effort to get in touch. He allegedly reached out to McClurkin's team via social media, email, and even gospel-related middlemen. But every time Jordan disclosed the devastating information, he claims he was either ignored or told, "This isn't something Donnie can address publicly. They informed me that I would not be accepted by the church." According to him, Donnie's close friends and family warned him that it would ruin his father's reputation, that the gospel community would turn against him, that admitting an unwed child would cause controversy, particularly because it would bring up old issues regarding Donnie's sexuality and celibacy vows and the emotional toll. Devastatingly, Jordan acknowledged that he struggled with anxiety, sadness, and thoughts of inadequacy. "It's not just that he didn't raise me," he replied. "He didn't even want the world to be aware that I existed." He posted pictures of his family, voice notes that sounded like handlers cutting off the discussion, and screenshots of purported communications. Furthermore, even though Donnie has not publicly addressed the allegations, the quiet simply served to amplify them. Jordan's supporters started to demand explanations. The news was picked up by gospel blogs. Twitter exploded. Jordan was accused of lying by some. He was referred to as brave by others. However, the question still stood. Unless a young man genuinely thought he was telling the truth, why would he openly expose himself to mockery? And why hasn't Donnie spoken up for years if what he says is accurate? Here's the twist that Jordan revealed in his last video, though, one that altered our perception of Donnie's potential quiet in every way. He said he had evidence, a DNA test instead of just sentimental words, and even a gospel executive who supposedly provided confidential confirmation. Jordan came back just as the tale was about to die down into another internet rumor, not with a tale this time, but with what he referred to as the proof they can no longer ignore. The young man carried paperwork with him when he posted the now viral 6-minute video. "This is for the ones who called me a liar." A readable but grainy screenshot of what looked to be a paternity test report was at the heart of the video. The suspected father was identified as Donald A. McClurkin. The outcome was a 99.4% chance of paternity. According to Jordan, the test was conducted in private using a DNA sample obtained illegally through a mutual link in the gospel industry. To be clear, Donnie McClurkin has not accepted or rejected the outcome, and no court documents have been provided. Jordan didn't stop there either, which is what makes this so concerning. He stated that a senior gospel executive who had collaborated with Donnie for more than 10 years personally called him after he submitted the DNA sample. "Don't push this story. It will hurt him." Jordan claims the person told him, "You don't want that on your hands." Jordan, who was crying, said he saw that as a veiled threat, an effort to save the gospel brand rather than Donnie's heart. Because this is the story's darker side. There's an unwritten rule in many Black gospel institutions. It's all about the image. Being publicly linked to an unwed kid would be viewed by some as confirming confusion, backsliding, or worse, hypocrisy, especially for men like Donnie, who had previously spoken out about gay problems. Jordan claims that this is the very reason he was silenced. A church administrator allegedly stated, "We don't need another scandal in the gospel world," in one of the voice recordings he claimed to have. One of those videos, which circulated on YouTube gossip sites, features a muffled voice warning. "We've covered this for years. Donnie has made it clear. Don't stir the pot. Keep this private or you're going to bring shame to his name." But who are we? Jordan's meaning was obvious. The scenario was known to a group of leaders, public relations handlers, and gospel insiders who collaborated to hide it, and online gospel enthusiasts were shocked by that assertion. Comparisons to past gospel leaders who had been hidden or protected at the expense of transparency erupted on Twitter threads. Nobody was able to respond to the question, why did Jordan have to endure such a lengthy period of suffering in silence if the DNA is authentic and the church was aware of it? The ramifications are enormous. If confirmed, it would indicate that Donnie McClurkin, a well-known pastor and artist around the world, was coerced into not having his own son in order to preserve a reputation that was more influenced by fear than religion. Additionally, the silence from gospel leaders increased as more receipts were made public. However, Donnie was no longer the exclusive focus. This exposed something far more unsettling, a framework designed to safeguard gospel platforms, even at the expense of human lives. Jordan wasn't the only one who was prepared to talk. The gospel world was rocked by Jordan's disclosures, but doubters continued to question him. Where is the evidence that the church was aware? The witnesses are where? That response, however, came sooner than anyone anticipated. A woman who only identified herself as Sister L came forward in a now-deleted Facebook Live a few days after Jordan shared his purported DNA evidence, but not before screen captures and reposts made it go viral. Sister L, a long-standing choir coordinator at Donnie McClurkin's church, shocked the gospel world with a shocking revelation in the heartfelt video. She declared, "I'm not here to start drama." She claims that Jordan was once taken to the church in silence at a private meeting with Donnie's staff. "But I can't sit quiet anymore. We all knew about the boy. We were told to keep it quiet." She stated that she witnessed the child being led out a side door to avoid inquiries and that this incident occurred approximately 5 years ago. She went on, "Donnie was emotional. I could see it on his face, but leadership told him this couldn't come out. Not with everything he'd been through, not with the spotlight on him. They said the church won't survive another scandal, which is more frightening." According to Sister L, this was not an isolated incident. The subject of the son was brought up in at least 2 internal meetings between leadership and a limited group of employees, but the discussion was quickly cut off with comments like, "That's a personal matter. The man of God is protected by us. Decades of ministry will be destroyed if this leaks. We have no right to pass judgment. Covering is our responsibility. Cover, not face, not make amends, just cover." Sister L claimed that when she expressed concerns about the potential impact of this secrecy on the boy's mental health, she was told, "Leave it alone, God will handle it." The phrase "God will handle it," which is frequently used to downplay responsibility, ended up being a spiritual band-aid applied to what now seemed to be severe, systematic neglect. And it wasn't just Sister L too. Unnamed former ministry volunteers sent private direct messages to gospel media groups, echoing her story after her video went viral. "Every employee on staff was aware, but we were instructed not to inquire, and nobody wanted to be the one to bring Donnie down," one person stated. But this is where it really hurts. Several insiders claim that Donnie never denied the boy in private. Let that sink in. According to one account, Donnie sobbed as he confessed, "I want to do right, but the church ain't ready for this." A society more concerned with defending the pulpit than with healing people suppressed a parent who was ready to step up. It was more than a scandal now. It was a mirror of something more profound, sinister, and destructive. A religious system that penalizes integrity, particularly when it contradicts ideals of male leadership, sexuality, or purity politics. And in the middle of it all was Donnie, who had been abused himself and was now caught up in a devastating echo of shame and silence. Jordan, however, continued to speak as the other gospel leaders remained silent. His subsequent action wasn't merely audacious, it was loud, public, and intended to compel the church to react. Jordan brought the battle straight to the gospel world after months of tearful videos, grainy pictures, and rumors. Not another nuanced hint. No more unsteady automobile videos. This time he wrote an open, lengthy letter addressed to the church that taught my father how to conceal me. The letter was posted again on Instagram, Twitter, and Medium. Several gospel blogs even linked to it. An entire generation, brought up in the image-obsessed tradition of gospel fame, suddenly demanded accountability for what began as a last-ditch appeal from an invisible son. What Jordan said in that now viral article is as follows: "I have no desire for stardom. A father is what I desire. There are hundreds more people just like me, so I want my story to be heard." Because the church emphasizes shame over grace, children are born into silence. The years of emotional desertion were brutally detailed by him. He sat in churches that worshiped Donnie's voice on many Sundays and on solemn birthday nights, oblivious to the fact that the boy was unable to say his name aloud. Jordan, however, went beyond feelings. He made clear requests, asking Donnie McClurkin to publicly acknowledge him, not only for the sake of the world, but so he could at last take back his identity. Church leadership's declaration on the culture of shame, reputation, and silence over healing. a broader conversation about fatherlessness, mental health, and the price of church-based image management in gospel contexts. The letter struck with force. In just 48 hours, hashtags started to gain popularity. Where is the grace? Truth and church cover-ups are what our Jordan deserves. Young gospel enthusiasts started crafting their own narratives about how churches shielded male leaders at the expense of women, children, and the truth. Something more profound, a reckoning, was triggered by Jordan's narrative. All of a sudden, well-known voices in the gospel community started to open the door. A few preachers at lesser levels started posting mysterious messages. Image is inferior to grace. Occasionally, the scandal lies in the stillness. Jordan's message was even republished by some with the phrase, "This hurts, but it's necessary." Nevertheless, Donnie McClurkin said nothing. No sermons, no press releases, no tweets, just an increasing void that made the stillness seem like guilt. The world was listening though. What no tabloid could ever do, Jordan's bravery had done. It gave the scandal a human face. It transformed what many believed to be just another sloppy gospel myth into a heartbreaking illustration of what occurs when popular acclaim ignores personal hurts. An insider at a prominent Christian TV network said that the most startling response was when Donnie McClurkin was asked to conduct a private interview in order to finally address the matter. He allegedly refused, stating that he was emotionally prepared. Rather, this enigmatic letter was uploaded online by a family member, perhaps a cousin close to Donnie's side. There is one last pressing question though, because sometimes maintaining silence is necessary to preserve peace. Does Donnie McClurkin have self-defense in mind? Or is he defending the church that taught him to be quiet, even at the expense of his fatherhood? And now we reach the intersection, the point where heritage and truth meet, where one man's silence echoes through a whole generation of believers, worshipers, and forgotten sons. The author of We Fall Down, Donnie McClurkin, who stood fearlessly on stages and preached rescue and restoration, is now at the center of a tale he never wanted to share. A story that is finally being told for him by someone else. Jordan's quest has evolved beyond a simple search for a father. It has turned into a mirror held up to the Black church, revealing the silent places where hallelujah hides hurt, where appearance is prized over closeness, and where gospel symbols are shielded despite their own shortcomings. If Jordan is correct and the DNA, testimonials, and records all support his allegations, we have to ask, what kind of gospel shames those with personal scars while demanding perfection in public? We also need to consider the implications for a whole society that still views reputation, sexuality, and fatherhood as taboo, untouchable, and too precious to be questioned. Because the truth is that Donnie and Jordan aren't the only characters in this drama. It concerns every preacher's child who witnessed their parents' public worship but private disappearance. It concerns all of the unwed children who were removed in order to protect a church's reputation. And it concerns every gospel performer whose humanity was subordinated to their platform. Donnie McClurkin may be shielding himself or a whole system from the truth by remaining silent rather than confronting it. Jordan's bravery, however, is evidence that truth never dies in silence. It furs and waits before speaking out loud one day. The gospel community must now make a decision. In the name of grace, will we continue to defend silence? Or will we at last make space for truth, accountability, and transparency in redemption? Thus, we now address you, the audience. What do you think? Do you believe Jordan's claim to be Donnie McClurkin's secret son is true? Should this have been handled differently by the church? Most importantly, can honesty and legacy coexist? Or do they have to always be mutually exclusive? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. For example, if you think this discussion is long needed, get more honest, unvarnished, and eye-opening gospel stories that the mainstream won't touch by subscribing. If you also think truth deserves a microphone, please share this video. One thing is for certain, while gospel music may uplift the spirit, healing starts or ends off stage.